Well, Mark Carney finally drops his platform, the one we've been waiting for, the one we've been wondering about. What is he going to talk about? What is this platform going to be? What is going to be so dynamic and interesting that he says it's going to be just a different, radical departure from where the party is currently? And what did he drop? He dropped, we're going to scrap the consumer carbon tax and replace it with green incentive purchases. Oh, baby. Yeah, they're just going to make sure to, instead of robbing you financially directly, they're just going to rob you of your freedom of choice of what you want to buy. Sounds like a fun time over here in Canada, doesn't it? Mark Carney's future for Canada sounds amazing. It sounds promising. It sounds absolutely disgusting. And to those who are maybe tuning in for the first time, you might say, Josh, that's a little crass. Josh, that's a little too, it seems like that's an unfair criticism. And I'll tell you, we'll go through the address today and what he talked about. I'll paint out why I feel this way, why what we're seeing is not good, and why we cannot allow this man to be a PM for a 4-year term. There were 3 critical issues that he brought up that I took issue with and kind of raised some red flags for me. One, saying, hitting the stupid liberal talking point that Poilievre doesn't have a plan. He doesn't care about the environment. He doesn't believe in climate change. You know, trying to, again, make Poilievre to be this huge bad guy who just wants to stick it to the people. And it's like, no, Poilievre has talked about this. He's talked about LNG projects that need to be greenlit so that we can get clean energy to places like China and India, and so that they can burn cleaner and actually we can bring down the emissions that you so love talking about down across the globe. That's the plan that Poilievre's put out. The plan you've put out, though, Carney, is investing more government funds into green energy projects that we have no idea we'll even see the result of, because those talking points were used by your predecessor, Justin Trudeau, for the past 10 years, and nothing came of it. We just saw billions of dollars leave the country in the name of green energy to a bunch of billionaires overseas. Sounds like a fun time. But those are the 3 things he hit. First thing, let's talk about him saying he's scrapping the consumer carbon tax. Saying, yeah, we're going to move away from it just because it's become divisive. Not because it sucks. And that every metric possible has shown that it has been ineffective, not helpful, and not hitting the targets that they're trying to hit. And also, it's bankrupting the nation. All detailed in the Parliamentary Budgetary Officer's report about the carbon tax. But no, it's about it being too divisive. Check this out.
It's a plan that makes our economy more competitive. It grows good jobs today, and it will grow better ones in the future. You know, friends, there are literally billions of dollars of investment on the table and millions of jobs at stake. So here's how our new plan works. My government will immediately remove the consumer carbon tax. But we won't stop there. Instead, what we'll do is create a system of incentives to reward Canadians for making greener choices. So it means that you'll no longer have to pay more to fuel your car or heat your home. But when you choose an energy-efficient appliance or an electric car or home insulation, you will be rewarded, and we will get the big polluters to pay for it.
We're going to introduce an incentive structure to get people to make more greener choices, and then we're going to make the big polluters pay for it. Wow. I feel like I've heard that from somewhere before. I feel like he stole his speech and just leftied it up a bit. It sounds very familiar to, we're going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it. Sounds oddly familiar. Something that's so far out there, and like, really? You're going to make the big polluters pay for this program? There was a follow-up question from a reporter asking about this, like, okay, how are we going to make them pay for it? And without them pushing and placing the extra cost you're putting on the big polluters, how's that not going to siphon down to the consumer? And he couldn't really give an answer. He tried to, a little bit of word salad around it, but then didn't really answer it. He pretty much ended off saying, oh, it just won't happen. Just won't. Okay, yeah, got it. Yeah, I'll take your word on it there, sir. But we're moving into an incentive-based structure. And this, my friends, is the difference between a Pierre Poilievre and what he's bringing to the table and what Mark Carney is. Pierre Poilievre is talking about trying to loosen the amount of power the federal government has. He's advocating to greenlight more natural gas projects. He's trying to give Canadians back choice, the freedom of choice of what they buy in the marketplace. And Carney here is doing the opposite. He wants to concentrate more power to the federal government. He wants to restrain your freedom of choice of what you buy in the marketplace. An incentive structure, meaning we're going to make this set of items very easily accessible and purchasable, And then we're going to make this set of items inaccessible, all under the guise of we're giving you a freedom of choice of what you want to purchase. Yet they're going to rig the market in such a way so that you buy the things that they want you to buy. And then they'll reward you for it. And do you know what those items are going to be? Those are all items that are going to be conveniently backed or involved with the Carney family of organizations that he's involved with and likely has a stake in, likely has stock in, like he did with the heat pump incentive that Trudeau put forward. They brought in the heat pump program just a couple weeks after Mark Carney acquired and was involved with the heat pump company. Okay, interesting. And that's more so what we're going to get. It's going to become the oligarchy that they've been so warning you about. It's right under your nose. And he, my friends, Mark Carney, is at the front of it. And then Mark Carney proposes the idea. This is why his ideas are more important. This is why his ideas are going to work better. Because Poilievre just says, axe the tax. That's all he has. Axe the tax. Axe the tax. And he has no plans behind it, even though he's talked about those plans quite extensively over the past year. But Carney wants you to believe that he just wants to say, axe the tax. And that's what Carney says. And that's what the lie he keeps pushing as he continues to push the lie here.
Let me be clear. If we were only to remove the carbon tax, we'd create two problems. First, Canada's emissions would not decrease as rapidly as before. And secondly, most Canadian households would be worse off because of the end of the rebate. Pierre Poilievre's, with his simplistic and misleading axe the tax, doesn't care about either problem. Now, that's possible because he doesn't really believe in climate change. Or it's possible he thinks that Canada, for the first time in our history, should be a free rider on a massive global problem, leaving for other countries to solve. It's certainly clear that he doesn't really understand how important that money in the rebate is to hardworking families across the country. But we get it. We care. And that's why our plan will directly solve both problems by both implementing new climate policies that are at least as effective in lowering emissions and by bringing forward new economic measures that will make Canadian families better off.
Better off. Make families better off. I can't believe he's actually pushing the idea or continue to push the idea that he's different from the Trudeau Liberals and keeps pushing the same ideas. Well, he's going to scrap the rebate of the carbon tax, which makes people better off. No one believes that. And don't worry, no one has to believe it because the facts say that that is hogwash. The Parliamentary Budgetary Officer did their own report saying the carbon tax is so ineffective. It doesn't bring down emissions, it makes people poorer, and in no way helps anyone make greener choices. But they keep pushing the idea. It makes people better off. No one was better off. No one was getting more money back than they were so putting into the system. It was a wealth redistribution scheme that people say, oh, it's just, they'll take it into their coffers and they'll redistribute it to the rest of Canada. No. It is a redistribution scheme, yes. But it takes the wealth of the middle class, siphons them out, and gives it to the billionaires overseas. That's what this does. That's the idea. That's how this works. We've already seen it with the $1 billion slush fund that they still won't release the documents for. This, my friends, this plan is just the Green Slush Fund 2.0. How can we get more initiatives, more green energy projects, more things that we can involve ourselves in to collect more of your tax money and siphon it out of the country and put the finishing nail in the coffin of the beautiful country that once was Canada. That is where this plan goes. That is what happens. And they keep pushing the lie that you get more in the carbon tax than you give in. There is not one economist, not even the PBO himself, who said that was accurate. And then you have the anecdotal side of it too, where no one felt the difference. They only felt like they were being taken from. So what you did is you're going to remove a tax that makes people poorer and replace it with a program that will reduce people's way of life a lot more significantly, unless they give you their money, and that you can take their money and give it off to special interest groups and businesses that you are aligned with and might have a stake in. And you don't believe me about the Slush Fund 2.0? We'll hear him rhyme it all off here in this final minute of him talking about what they're going to do to push on the green revolution here in Canada and what they're going to do and put their money towards.
The fourth thing we will do is to build Canada's competitiveness. And we'll do so by boosting investments where they're needed the most. My government will provide greater investment tax credits, more Canada Growth Fund initiatives, and major provisions for accelerated depreciation of private investments. And these will all reinforce the incentives created by those changes to the output-based pricing system. What's the bottom line? Canada can become a clean energy superpower and make the most of our existing oil and gas resources during the transition.
Where did I hear this from again? We're going to create more jobs. We're going to be the green energy superpower. It's almost like Justin Trudeau's been saying that for the past 10 years, and the country only got worse. So you're telling me, no, he just didn't do it right. I'm going to do it right now. Even though you're the one behind the scenes making a lot of the decisions from an economic perspective. Right. Yep. I believe it. And this is the one thing. He bookended his press conference with these two ideas. He started off ripping on Trump, and then he ended off ripping on Trump in an indirect way. Saying, you know, America has a fever right now, and it will pass. But we need to be there to help them and support them when that fever passes, showing them the light of this green new age. Donald Trump is taking America in the past. He's turning back the clocks and focusing more on oil, which is the old world. I'm going to take you into the new world. And so he bookended his press conference with those two statements. He started off tearing up Trump, ended with tearing up Trump. And my friends, it is very clear to me that we are in the midst and witnessing a battle take place between Donald Trump and the World Economic Forum. And we, as Canadians, are just caught in the middle of it. And we have to make the decision of if we're going to fight for the sovereignty of our country and not have any outside voices dictate how we're going to do things here. We're not going to have any outside voices tell us how we're going to buy things. We're going to have the outside voice tell us how we are going to live our lives. You can take your new green incentive structure and stick it right up where the sun do not shine, because we know this is just a backdoor way to limit Canadians' freedoms, freedom of movement, freedom of choice, and making sure that you're siphoning their dollars to all your corporate billionaires overseas who are going to try and tell us how to live our lives. Not a chance, not going to allow it. Not going to stand for it. It's funny, I look back at an article by Peter Foster in 2021 where he talks about Carney and talks about the things that Carney discusses in his book, Values. And just the first two paragraphs are alarming enough to know where this guy's coming from and where he's going to take this country if he grabs hold for a 4-year mandate. In his book, Values, Building a Better World for All, Mark Carney, former governor both of the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, claims that Western society is morally rotten and that it has been corrupted by capitalism, which has brought about climate emergency that threatens life on Earth. This, he claims, requires rigid controls on personal freedom, industry, and corporate funding. And didn't we just hear that all in the clips that we talked about in his speech today? Having heavy regulation on industry and corporate funding and restricting the personal freedom of choice of what you can purchase in a free society. Carney's views are important because he is the UN Special Envoy on Climate Action and Finance. He's also an advisor both to the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson on the next big climate conference in Glasgow and to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Since the advent of the COVID pandemic, Carney has been front and center in the promotion of a political agenda known as the Great Reset or the Green New Deal, or Building Back Better. All are predicated on the claim that COVID and its disruption to the global economy provides a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity not just to regulate climate, but to frame a more fair, more diverse, more inclusive, more safe, and more woke world. And this is a really interesting article, and I suggest you go read it. Peter Foster, Mark Carney, Man of Destiny, wants to revolutionize society. It won't be pleasant. I'll put it in the show notes. It details exactly what he's about. And I also suggest go read Mark Carney's book, Values. It'll give you a deeper idea of who he is, what he's about, and what he wants to unleash here in Canada. Carney says he's not a politician, but he really does act like one, doesn't he? Telling us one thing and doing another. And he really thinks Canadians are stupid enough to believe him. In some cases, people are just don't pay attention enough, and that's not their fault. They got a life to live. This liberal government has made their lives so hard to live that they can only focus on how they're going to make their next dollar. But it's on us. It's incumbent upon us to let people know who this guy is, reason properly, talk respectfully, communicate clearly of what could happen and will happen if this guy gets the reins. Convince your friends and those who know that this guy is not who he claims to be, and he will end this country if he gets into power for 4 years. He's going to leverage people's distaste for Poilievre, and we can't allow him to do it. And that's why it's people who believe in freedom and believe that Canada should remain sovereign really need to start getting more organized. And that's why we as a show are starting to take steps towards that, and we'll be announcing those steps over the next couple of weeks of what we're trying to do and make happen. So we want to make sure that we're organized and focused to make sure Carney doesn't get voted in. But I'd love to hear more of what you have to say. Let us know down in the comments what you thought about that press conference and that announcement today of what his plans are moving forward. Have yourselves a good one. Enjoy your Friday. I'm out.